The whole point of being an entrepreneur is to make things happen despite the lack of those resources, right? That is your job. So we find a way to get started. You find the people, and ultimately people say, well, I can't start this business, Richard, because I don't know how. And I say to them, the how is irrelevant until you have actually decided that you are going to do it, right? Because until you decide, I am starting this, then you don't even need to know the how, right? But make that decision to start and you will soon find it out. And the path will unfold for you. So step into the unknown, because it's the only way that you're going to get from where you are now to that place that you know you really ultimately want to be in.
Welcome to the Focused Entrepreneur series. My name is Duncan Faulkner and I am one of the co-founders of Focus.space. The Focused Entrepreneur series is about talking about entrepreneurship, the good, the bad, the ugly, and some of the mistakes we've made along the way, and also some of the tips that some of the people that have been there and done it have learned as part of their journey. Today, I'm really excited to have Richard Liew from nzentrepreneur.co.nz with us. Welcome, Richard.
Good morning or good evening, Duncan. Pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Thank you very much. It's great to have you here as our first interviewee. Richard, you're an entrepreneur, so give us your elevator pitch. Tell us all about nzentrepreneur.co.nz.
Yeah, cool. So NZ Entrepreneur, the online magazine, which you can find at nzentrepreneur.co.nz. If you haven't found it already, check it out. Basically, we provide free information, insights, and inspiration for all the Kiwis out there who are looking to build a business, maybe turn an idea that they've been playing with in their head into some sort of money-making entity or social enterprise. And yeah, try and help them on their journey, give them a bit of the insights and knowledge that are going to help them along the way, the courage to get started, a place and a like-minded community to join of people on the same journey, and of course lots of inspiring stories with other Kiwi entrepreneurs out there doing it in all sorts of different fields, and it's a lot of fun.
And Richard, you're in quite a unique position. You're an entrepreneur yourself, but you also get a really privileged insight into the lives of other entrepreneurs and their stories. How do you find that, getting to see what everyone else on the kind of an entrepreneurship journey is achieving?
I think I've got the best job in the world, honestly. It's really, as I said before, it's a lot of fun, and it's very inspiring. So, I think of myself as an entrepreneur first and publisher and media guy second. So that's sort of, I guess, the field that I've chosen to play in and where I've found my heart and my passion, which is all about helping other people who are just starting out on the journey. So I started my first business over 20 years ago, been self-employed or in my own businesses for 23 years now, I think, last count. And so certainly have been, I like to think I've made pretty much every mistake you can make in the entrepreneurial space, startup and business building journey. That's across 6 or 7 different businesses that we've started and from scratch and taken to market along the way. And finally found, I feel like my place, which is my forever job, so to speak, doing what we do here at NZ Entrepreneur. And the cool thing about it is just when you start to feel a little bit mad or you start to feel a bit crazy as an entrepreneur, I'm not sure if you've had that experience. What I get to do is I get to talk to other people out there doing it who are even crazier and trying even bigger, things. They've got, working on bigger goals, bigger missions, really out there ideas. And so, for me, it's a really inspiring way to, go about fulfilling my mission, which is helping other entrepreneurs and then shining a light on the work that they're doing. So yeah, I love it.
Let's rewind the clock back 20 years. You would have been a little bit younger. Can you share with us what your personal journey looked like from the beginning of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I actually started out as an accountant, did a finance degree, worked for 3 years in a chartered accounting firm. up in Auckland before I realised that I was bored out of my mind and I just hated it. And I think, like a lot of people who have come through the education system, I sort of found myself at this point where, as a young person, I'd spent all this time training to be this thing and getting qualified to be this thing. And then realized after a couple of years actually doing it that, what the hell am I doing here? How did I get here? I didn't choose to be an accountant, did I? But sort of looking back, I think I fell into it just by default of, well, I wasn't really into science, and I wasn't really into art, and I wasn't really into history and all that kind of stuff. So you sort of almost by default find yourself falling into something, and you go through the system and you come out with a degree or a qualification, or you go and get a trade or whatever. And I think so that's something that I think we need to be aware of, that often where we find ourselves may not necessarily, if we're not conscious, if we're just going through life, going through the steps, achieving, as so many of us are, you got to be very careful, because as they say, you can soon find yourself, you've climbed to the top of the ladder, right, and then you realize your ladder's against the wrong wall. So I had this moment in my early 20s where I was like, man, what the heck am I going to do? Because I know I can't do this. And that really spurred me into my first entrepreneurial venture, because after deciding I didn't want to be an accountant, and I thought, well, what do I want to do? I'm not qualified for anything else. I thought, well, learning how to sell might be a good idea. I did have an inkling that I might like to run my own business. And so I applied for just about every sales job I could for a period of 6 months, and got knocked back from every single one of them, because of course no one wants to hire an accountant for sales, right? That's just, you don't do that. And in my desperation, eventually I decided, right, bugger this, I just quit my job, and I created a package of spreadsheets using my accounting skills, packaged them up on these, the little 2.5 inch 2.4 megabyte of floppy disk goodness, and went about selling those spreadsheet packages from home, basically cold calling small business owners and real estate agents, who I realized I'd seen them coming into the accounting firm every year to get their accounts done, and they'd bring in these cardboard boxes and shoe boxes full of receipts, and just an absolute mess generally. And I saw, well, they'd end up paying for someone at the accounting firm, for a junior like me, good hundreds of dollars an hour, just to go through and sort these receipts out. And I knew that if I could put together a very simple, easy to use spreadsheet package, which could help the small business owner just get those things in order, it was going to save them a lot of time and money, a lot in their annual accounting fees. And so that was the premise of my first entrepreneurial venture. I managed to sell enough spreadsheet packages for a year, pay the rent, keep the lights on, keep the gas in the car, and of course I learned how to sell, right? Because if I didn't sell these spreadsheet packages, then I didn't get any money, and that was a really vital, I think, part of my entrepreneurial learning how to sell, because the easy part in many ways is actually creating the product or designing a service, or whatever it is you want to take to market. The next part of it, though, is how you take it to market, how you actually get people to pay to part with their hard-earned money for something that you're trying to sell to them. I still remember the very first sale I made to this day, and yeah, that sort of got me on the journey. With that 1 year of sales experience selling my own product, I was able to then get a proper sales job for a proper company. So I went and joined an IT company in Ponsonby, Auckland at the time. It was a listed company, and I got a job selling FPOS machines. Did that for a year or so, learned everything I could about selling again to business owners. Got put onto a product manager's sort of role after I got bored of selling FPOS terminals. And I was lucky to be seconded as part of this new role to one of the very first startups that went through the Ice House incubator in Parnell, Auckland. That was back in 2002. The Ice House had only just started in 2001, I think. And so that was my introduction to the startup world. So as part of that job, I worked within the startup that went through the incubator, and we were working on a basically the first credit card processing payment solution via mobile phone. That company went on to do very well. Adam Clark and Graham Ransley, Edward Massey went on, and they've become one of the, I think, most successful Icehouse alumni companies ever. Actually, sold out eventually for a nice figure to an American payments company. That introduced me to the whole startup scene, and ever since then, basically, I've been launching and building my own various businesses. So from recruitment and HR to publishing. So I published 6 or 7 different online magazines in our time. It soon led us to NZ Entrepreneur, which we launched in 2012. So that's had our 10-year anniversary last year. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since. And in the background, of course, we run the Startup NZ Entrepreneurs program, which is a simple online learn from anywhere program, which is a real introduction for any Kiwi, again, who's wanting to go through this process of learning how to start their own business, become self-employed, build a tech startup, or again, simply take an idea that they have and take it to market, or solve a problem that they want to, they feel they want to put some time into solving via a business or a social enterprise. So yeah, all in all, it's been a busy time. It's been a hell of a ride, and met a heck of a lot and worked with a heck of a lot of entrepreneurs and seen what they're doing. Yeah, so that all informs, of course, what we do at NZ Entrepreneur and the Startup NZ program.
And at the start of that, you talked about how you almost fell into being an accountant, but to be an accountant takes years of training, and you very rarely see a poor accountant. So presumably it would have been a really secure and relatively well-paid job. Do you remember the moment in time that you realized that there was something inside of you that needed to change, that you needed to scratch the itch of entrepreneurship?
Oh, for sure. Very clearly, I just remember sitting at my desk one day in the accounting firm, looking up and around me at the people in the office. Great people, awesome company to work for. Learned a lot in that company. And I just saw everyone else was happy and getting on with their work quietly in the accountant's office. And I just realized, man, I am bored. I'm bored of doing the same accounts for the same companies, the same. I could see my future disappearing down this tunnel, where basically it was just a never-ending process of doing other people's books every time that the new financial year rolled around, and I could see myself doing that. Absolutely, the pathway there to partnership was right there if I wanted it. Would it have been easier? Probably would have been easier than going on the path unknown. Financially, probably if you look back at the way to get ahead over the last 40, 50 years, say here in New Zealand at least, or probably generally anywhere in the Western world, the standard sort of advice would have been go to school, get a profession or a trade afterwards, work in that job for 20, 30, 40 years. Maybe you have 3 or 4 changes over the course of your career. Retire at 65, get your gold watch. Hopefully by then you've bought a house and maybe a rental property. And then, of course, you retire, you downsize, and live on the pension and happily ever after. But I think that formula for success is absolutely outdated. It doesn't work these days. You look at the career path of any young, any millennial, any Gen Xer, especially, and contrast that to, say, our parents or especially our grandparents' career paths. You're now looking at careers where people are changing jobs, at least every sort of 18, 24 months. And you might work for 20 different companies as opposed to, say, 2. As for buying a house and getting ahead and saving up and all that kind of stuff, with the way the economy and the cost of housing here in New Zealand has far outstripped the growth in sort of average wage. That's a pretty slow going road. It's probably the safe one again. Would I have made more money just being an accountant and buying properties in 20 years than I have going my own way and building companies? At this stage, probably the answer would be yes. But we only get one life. Do you want to look back at the end of it and say, yeah, I took the easy way? I had something inside of me that said I need to go try and experiment and do these things and try and grow in this other path. I would just never want to look back at my life and say, no, I actually choked that down and I took the easy way out. That's the one thing you'll never get back, is that time. So yeah, a bit philosophical there, but what else is life? It's a journey. So we're going to make the best decision we can at the time about what path we want to take.
And it's been a really long path for you. You're 20 years into it. You're recognised throughout New Zealand as a voice for entrepreneurship. Your NZ Entrepreneur has got thousands of readers. What would be the advice you would give yourself, or the version of you 20 years ago? What would you tell yourself that you know now that you didn't know back then?
Yeah, such a good question. And this is what caused us to launch the Startup NZ course, actually, which was this question of, if I could start again, knowing what I know now, what would I wish I had been told or learned or had access to? What information? There's a lot of information out there about how to do business, right? And a big part of the challenge is filtering through all that and trying to find out what's relevant to me, and what's relevant at my stage of the journey. If I look back, there's a couple of things that would stand out to me. So it's took me at least 12 years to figure out the actual, as I said, the field or the industry I wanted to play in, that being in media, that being in around business and entrepreneurship, and finding out what is the value I want to bring to the world and who are the people I care about. So who are the customers I really give a damn about, really want to help. And it took me quite some time to figure out that they're fellow business owners, they're fellow people who are starting out on that journey and wanting to get ahead, right? And so I personally feel that if I can help anyone start that journey and help them lift themselves up through entrepreneurship, then that's a worthwhile thing doing, right? Because the flow-on effects of that, helping build entrepreneurial enterprising Kiwis, we know that's the backbone of the economy there. That's the foundation for all growth, for all value creation, healthy, wealthy families, communities, and ultimately cities and country. And I sort of think, man, I wish I'd found this earlier rather than having to spend 10, 12, 15 years trying all these other different businesses. And I wish I could have got to the good stuff. Because now I'm here, now I feel like we're just getting warmed up. And so I will be doing this, until I can't do it anymore, literally. And I know
if
that
you had found this on day one of your journey, do you think you would be as good as you are now?
Yeah. And so this is the thing, right? So whenever you're looking for a shortcut in life, and you ultimately unpick it and you realize, actually, I only got to this realization, I only got to this place, this heart, through going through everything I've gone through before, right? It's those distinctions that have come out of taking a step forward, doing your best with whatever opportunity comes in front of you at the time, learning and growing, which helps you have these distinctions and these aha moments, which ultimately lead us to where we are now. So essentially, how do you shortcut it? Well, it's not a shortcut. And Rod Drury, co-founder at Focus, I remember him very clearly saying in one of the events I was at back in Auckland, I think it was an EY Entrepreneur of the Year Awards or something. He was speaking there. This is like 2014, and he said, entrepreneurship is a series of baby steps. And what a lot of people don't understand when they read about guys like Rod and girls who have seemingly had this huge success in business, they don't understand that what actually went in before that was so many years of practicing in other businesses, right? So, with Rod, like Aftermail, Glazier Systems, and so on and so forth. If you look back at his entrepreneurial journey, it started years before Xero, right? And it's only the learnings that he had and the awareness and the mindset he developed, the vision that came out of those previous learnings, that the journey he'd been on prior to that, which ultimately led to Xero. So what I'd say is, if you're just starting out, number one, get started ASAP, right? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, as they say. The second best time is now. And because entrepreneurship is such a learning journey, you want to get the learning under your belt as soon as you can. So many people I hear and I speak to and I meet say, yeah, I really want to start a business. I really want to go out there on my own. I want to, make this thing. I've got this vision. And they just never ever get started. And year after year, I have the same conversations. How's it going? Where's it going? And generally, what I hear is the conditions aren't right yet. I don't have enough money yet. I don't have enough time yet. I haven't done enough research yet. I haven't met the right people yet. And what they're not understanding, when you're delaying beginning your entrepreneurial journey, the whole point of being an entrepreneur is to make things happen despite the lack of those resources, right? That is your job. So we find a way to get started. You find the people, and ultimately people say, well, I can't start this business, Richard, because I don't know how. And I say to them, the how is irrelevant until you have actually decided that you are going to do it, right? Because until you decide I am starting this, then you don't even need to know the how, right? But make that decision to start, and you will soon find it out, and the path will unfold for you. So step into the unknown, because it's the only way that you're going to get from where you are now to that place that you really ultimately want to be in.
Someone said to me a few months ago that when it comes to entrepreneurship, the journey only really makes sense when you look back on it. And then it makes perfect sense, because you had to go along that pathway to get to where you are, to build the product, the service, the business that you're offering. But when you're starting it, it makes no sense. And I think that's often why people go through so many iterations of businesses and pivots. What's been one of your highlights of your journey so far?
Look, the fact that we have time freedom, the ability to, moved a family down here to Wanaka from Auckland 8 years ago now, basically a lifestyle choice. The ability to be able to do that is a privilege, right? Worked hard to get ourselves in a position where we can have a business structure that allows us to do that. We can work from basically anywhere. We've chosen Wanaka, that's fine. I really value that time aspect from taking this path as a father as well. So I've got, raised two daughters, both in their early 20s now. But they've, back when I was first starting out, with my wife and I, Jen, they were just babies and young kids, and we've raised them and taken them up along this journey with us. Now they are, as you'd imagine, quite entrepreneurial themselves, which is great. But because of being able to do this, it meant that we've always been able to be there, someone to drop them off to school and wish them on their way, pick them up from school, take them to their sports, whatever it is they need to do after school. We've had that time that I think a lot of people don't get with their kids when you're working the 9 to 5. And the 9 to 5 generally, if you're commuting as well, means it's 7:30 to 6:30. So the only chance you really have for that family time is after those hours. When your kids are young, often they'll be in bed early. So if you're we look at the stereotypical nuclear family, dad goes out to work and he's home, and by the time he's at home and dinner, and then quick hello to the kids and they're off to bed. So I never had to do that, I guess, and that's really precious to me. And again, just knowing that every dollar we earn is because of something we have created, some value we have bought and delivered to people who value it. That's a really, really rewarding feeling. I just could not stand the thought of turning up to work, to a job which I didn't enjoy, to work hard, but not really care about, to get paid a certain amount for an hour or a day or a week or whatever it is, and then go home and do that for 40 years. That doesn't seem, that's not my idea of fun. So the journey has been the best.
Looking from the outside in, I feel it can be very easy for people to see entrepreneurs as living this, lifestyle that's just perfect down there in Wanaka, with all the time and the money in the world, and not having to stress too much about work because it all just takes care of itself. But what are the low points? You've talked about the high points, but I know on my journey, there's been some real tough times, especially in those first few years where you're seeing, what you perceive is everybody else succeeding, but at the same time you're checking your bank balance and you're wondering how you're going to pay rent. What have been your low points, if you don't mind sharing?
Absolutely. So let's talk firstly about the financial stress, because that's a real thing. As soon as you decide that I'm doing this, then the clock starts ticking, and as you just alluded to, and the bank account is whatever the bank account's at, and you've got a certain amount of time where especially if you're going through a startup, so you're taking something to market which doesn't yet exist. As soon as you make that commitment, the pressure comes on, right? So how Jen and I did it when we started our first business together, not my first business, but our first business together, we did the stereotypical, we both quit our jobs at the same time because we were so excited about this new business idea we had. We sold the house in Parnell, and we used the money to basically give us 6 months of runway to get started. That was back in 2004, I think, on our first business. Very, very exciting, right? But also quite, if you don't have the mindset which allows you to deal with that sort of pressure, then probably you're going to find it quite difficult along the way. Committing to doing something with no guaranteed outcome of success.
And what were the hardest parts for you and for Jen?
Well, that, for me, that was pretty easy. For Jen, we had a great time, right? So that first business we launched was in the HR industry. We started a recruitment company specializing in hiring salespeople. So we worked for companies like Sky TV, Yellow Pages, Rentokil Initial, Fuji Xerox, all these organizations that hired big sales teams, and we started a recruitment company that helped them hire salespeople, sales managers, customer service people. Had no experience, never done that before, but we knew that we had the ability to do it, and we had the self-belief. So that first business was awesome. We made some great money. We built the team up, had about nearly half a dozen people in the team by the 5 years later, before the GFC hit. Honestly, it wasn't that much. That was the good part. That was that's a nice easy way in, if you like, to our journey. Then the GFC hit. Right now, it starts to get very interesting, because in the GFC, of course, no one's hiring, everyone's firing, right? And that's not a great position to be in if you're running a recruitment business. Now we've started to get tested, right? Clients dried up overnight, had wages to pay. One of my lowest points, hardest moments, which will stick with me forever, was having to tell our team members on payday that I'm sorry, we don't have the money in the bank to pay you this week. So I was mid-20s at the time and had a couple of ladies I remember in particular who were early 50s with families and, great, awesome people. We loved our team. Worst position to be in, to have that conversation, and there were tears, as you would imagine, and there were angry husbands. So, that stuck with me, that always will. That really was a wake-up call. Like, when you are in business, you have a responsibility. It's not just to yourself, it's to all the people who start to rely on you, team, suppliers, partners, and that kind of stuff. That was pretty tough. But again, always looking for lessons learned. So,
and how did you deal with that stress of not being able to pay someone? Right, it's a fundamental responsibility of an employer, and no business owner ever wants to get into that position. But we can all see how quickly it can happen, right, when the environment changes. How did you and Jen manage through that period to, keep the business moving forwards, but also look after yourselves?
Well, I think in many respects, what you'll find is that generally you'll do what it takes to just keep it moving forward. I can't even remember what we did in the end there. I think we actually gave one of our cars to one of them, from memory, in lieu of payment. I just said, look, have this Subaru Legacy. It's worth about this much, and we just scrambled, right, as you do. You sort of, because that pressure is there, you just have to do what it takes to keep it going. That sort of just takes care of itself almost, right? But the self-care for the founders, that's another story altogether. Because while you're in the moment, it's all fight or, you're in fight or flight mode. The adrenaline's pumping and you're just doing it. Often that actually just gets totally overlooked, right? So you might go through these sorts of things for periods of years. So they talk about the roller coaster ride, and you have your ups and downs, and the market changes, and all of a sudden you've got this thing to deal with and that thing to deal with. And ultimately that does and will take a toll, physically, mentally, emotionally. What do I do personally to try and deal with that? It's things like whatever sports you're into, or pastimes, having passions outside of work, taking time to exercise, learning about meditation, yoga. I do a lot of. I play a lot of disc golf these days, which is frisbee golf down here. Things that help me spend some time outside of the business environment, and blow off steam. Again, the position we're in now, is quite different to those early days, though, where it was a lot more hectic. And as I said, NZ Entrepreneur is about our sixth business. So, in 20 odd years, and that's, it's quite a lot of doing stuff. I wouldn't change a thing though, right? So, because, it's the bigger the mountain, right, the better the view, so to speak. And if you're not ready for that, then just, you're not going to, just don't do it. Just be happy with turning up, doing your job, and living for the weekends. So I'll tell you that it's just that general ongoing need to make sure that you're always feeding the fire, right? You've got that cash flow responsibility. You've got to be creating value. You've got to be delivering to customers. You've got to keep your customers happy and returning. Now, once you learn to do that, though, right? Because entrepreneurship, the good news is it's principle based. And so no matter what business you're trying to run, there are some key principles which apply to all of them. And once you start to get the hang of it, I promise you, it does actually get easier. And so, once you get, it's like riding a bike. Once you actually learn how to do it, then all of a sudden it's fun. It's, and again, you can always take on a bigger challenge, right? If you want to make things exciting, just once you start to get comfortable, if you want to ramp it up a notch, go for it. You keep going until, you're only limited by your vision of what what the good is that you want to bring to the world. And many people now talk about, especially Kiwi business owners, the 3B syndrome, which is, once they've got the batch, the boat, and the beamer, that the typical New Zealand business owner or entrepreneur will be quite happy with that, and then they say, okay, I've gotten to where I want to be, and let's just take it easy. Yeah.
And we mentioned that you're in such a fortunate position that you get to speak to hundreds of thousands of startups over the course of your career. If you can be as specific as possible, what do you think are the top 3 traits that you've identified from the startups that have succeeded?
Okay, so I think when we talk about startups that succeed, we've got to make a distinction versus founders who succeed. Yes, there are startups that have been started by entrepreneurs who it's their first venture, really, and they've gone on to build a successful startup. But ultimately, you can have the best product, the biggest market opportunity, the right timing, but for sustained and repeated success, it comes back to the founder. And a big part of it, is actually their mindset. Actually, the mindset is really the foundation of everything they will go on to do as an entrepreneur. And so, for a start, what you find with anyone who's been successful in business of some sort is they, unlike all the others, and when I say all the others, I'm talking about, so I think the stat is something like 8% of all people will go on to start a business and actually start their business and become an entrepreneur and a founder in the course of their career, versus 92% who don't. The interesting statistic I was reading the other day, though, is that apparently 65% of all people have an idea for a business or want to be self-employed or want to start a business, but only 8% actually go and do it. So the number one trait is, for whatever reason, these founders, successful founders, have decided that they can and they will do this, right? They will take that first step into the unknown. So they have a mindset of, instead of focusing on all the good things, on all the bad things that may go wrong, like, for example, what if I quit my job and I start this business and it fails? Or what if I lose all my money? Or what if, I get humiliated in the process? Or, so you've got all the negatives, the what ifs that you could choose to focus on. The founders who do succeed focus on the positives of what they could do. So they focus on the impact they could bring to the world. They focus on the money they could make. They focus on how the lifestyle they could have if they succeed. And when you think about it, right, that's just that attitude is really just very similar to the attitude of, say, athletes, elite athletes, or anyone who's succeeded in the arts, or the performing arts, music, whatever you want to be. They have decided first and foremost that I can do this and I will do this. Or in fact, not necessarily they can, but they will, right? I will start. And then they've got a
mindset to succeed.
Correct. They've got that's right. The second one is they are good learners, right? So you have to be a really good learner when you're in business. Especially, so for most people, right, when we start our journey, generally you're going to be a solo founder, so it's just you. Maybe if you're lucky, you might have a co-founder. Could be a life partner, your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or it could be a friend. Very occasionally, you might have a team of you that start off, like the Sharesies team. I think they started off with 7 co-founders. All right, so but for most of us, it's just us and maybe one other. And the first thing you realize when you go to start a business is how much you don't know, right? So when we're in jobs, right, in jobs we get paid to specialize or focus on being really good at just one part or one role. So I work for a company and I'm paid to do sales, or I'm paid to do accounting, or I'm paid to do HR, or marketing, or coding, or research and development, whatever it is. When you start your first business, though, you soon realize that it's just you, and you now have to figure out all of those other roles as well. So you may have been great at sales when you were back in your safe, cozy job. Now, though, you've decided to start a business, you've got to get your head across quite quickly all these other areas of business. So you need to be a really good learner, and you've got to have a positive attitude toward learning, because you basically need to suck up all the stuff. You need to know enough about all the areas of business in order to get them started, as you know, and put you in a position where hopefully you can start to build out your business, and then you can start to delegate and assign responsibility to other team members, bring other resource on. Good learners, that's the second trait. And probably the third one is, I won't say stickability, although, you know, it's perseverance, stickability. But I would say they've tapped their ability to tap into something within them, which gives them a big enough reason to keep showing up every day, right? Because there's often a viewpoint or an impression from people who aren't business builders when they read about entrepreneurship, or they watch movies, or they read the news and they read about these people killing it in business and living these great lifestyles. As you alluded to, what they do not see is all the hard stuff that has gone in behind to get to that position. And you know, if you're thinking of starting a business because you hate your boss, then guess what? When you start your business, I tell you what, after 6 months of being your own boss, you're going to realize that every other boss you've actually had is way better than you, right? If you're starting a business just to make money, you're going to realize, especially in the first few years, that, my goodness, your hourly rate as an entrepreneur in those first early years where things are lean is terrible. You'll make way more money back in your job, you know, whatever you might have been doing. So you really need a bigger reason, a big enough reason to want to stay the road, you know, to turn up every day, and to keep on keeping on. And that's a very personal thing. You know, we've all got slightly different drivers, and you know, whatever it is for you is whatever it is for you. The trick is, have you got it in there? Can you find it, and can you connect with it, so that every day you're approaching it with you know, a zest, no matter how hard things are, no matter what disaster you're dealing with right now. You know, what is that bigger reason that's going to keep you going?
Terrific. So to summarize, a mindset to succeed, the ability to learn, and stickability or determination would be the three traits that you've really seen as a common thread through everyone that's founders that have succeeded, as opposed to startups. Now, my last question to you, Richard, and I've been really grateful for your time. You mentioned you've got a family there in Wanaka. Would you advise your children to start that entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, so where I've come to around this question is, you know, so the question, I guess, I frame it is, should everyone start a business, or should everyone be an entrepreneur? Because there are people out there, some people out there who say everyone should be. I don't actually believe that's the case. Entrepreneurship is a particular pathway in life. It's just a pathway. It's not the pathway. It's more about, you know, we're all born with innate gifts, preferences, tastes, likes, desires, and we all have a different way of bringing that good to the world, right? And it doesn't have to be in business. It doesn't have to be as a founder. You know, you may find that you're way better off bringing your gifts to the world as part of an existing team, as part of a company, as part of a not-for-profit, or, you know, whatever. You know, it could be in the arts, it could be in science, whatever it is. So for our kids, even though we've chosen the entrepreneurial pathway, we've never put pressure on them to say, you know, the only way to get ahead is to start a business. That's simply not the truth.
But if
And
they
what is
came
getting
to
ahead
you
anyway?
and said,
You know,
Dad, I've got this idea, or I want to do this thing, this business, would you give them a nudge to do it, or would you suggest they stayed in the safety of their career or their chosen profession?
I would give them the nudge to do it. Absolutely. I believe we don't have these ideas or these impulses. They don't come to us unless we were supposed to bring that forth, right? We never get given anything bigger than we can handle in life, ultimately. And to not, be like an artist who has this inkling to paint a landscape of something. Would you ever tell them not to paint that painting? Like, that's just ridiculous. If and so to me, it's just the answer is a resounding yes. Absolutely, I will encourage them to go for it. And whether or not it works, it doesn't matter. The point is that they are growing as a person by taking that step forward, by learning, by putting themselves in that uncomfortable position, which hopefully they can work through, which will only grow and expand their life, their viewpoint, their skill set, their mindset, their knowledge and understanding. So yeah, absolutely. I'd encourage any kid out there with an entrepreneurial bent or an idea to give it a go. Yeah, and there are some parameters around which I'd probably suggest to them. Hey, when you do start it or when you do take your first steps, here are some things to think about, right? Which are going to hopefully increase your chance of success, or on the flip side, reduce the likelihood of it turning, or going up in flames, and putting you off the game altogether, right? Because anytime an entrepreneur starts or tries something and they fail and they don't return to the journey, we've lost some entrepreneurial capital there to the world. I think it's a real shame. What you want to do, what you need to understand is that when what you've tried has failed, there is no better time for you to come back and be an entrepreneur than right after that, right? Because now the next thing you do, you've now got the benefit of that learning, that experience, right? And if you don't put it into action again, then you haven't, it's not wasted as such, but again, you've got to remember that it's a process, or it's a journey, and it's stepping forward, learning, growing, which enables you to take that next step forward, learn, grow, and once you're on that journey, then it gets really fun. It's really exciting. You are the creator of your own destiny, really, and entrepreneurship is a great way to do that.
Brilliant. Now, Richard, just lastly, you mentioned the NZ Entrepreneur course, which I know is available through your website, I believe. Do you want to just give us a quick overview about the course, and anyone that's interested in signing up to it? What do they need to do? How much would it cost them? How long does it take? Tell us about it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so Startup NZ, if you go to the NZ Entrepreneur website, you'll find links to the Startup NZ online course. We put this up just before the first lockdowns in 2020 for the COVID-19 lockdowns here in New Zealand, or end of 2019. We put this into market. It's basically an online course. Anyone can come along, do it, sign themselves up. The first 3 lessons are free, so there's 12 lessons altogether. We take you through everything you need to know on how to take your idea and actually set yourself up to bring that to market, right? So we're going to teach you about the entrepreneurial mindset, what you need to know about being an entrepreneur, how to prepare yourself mentally for the journey ahead, building out our personal skill sets around the startup process. So we're going to teach you the smart way to test and launch any business idea that you have, which will hopefully save you many wasted hours, dollars, and a lot of heartache. So we can apply a bit of a scientific methodology to the startup process, and teach you about some key things that you might need to know to actually get up and running. Understanding the foundations of marketing, fundraising if you need capital, get your business off the ground, team building, choosing co-founders, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, go along, sign yourself up. The full course costs $345. You get access to all the content though for a full year, full 12 months, and you can jump in and out. It's video content, it's lessons you can, and exercises to do, which will actually help you, you work on the course while you're working on your business idea. So that's been, it's been very well received. Had nearly, I think, 1,500 people go through the program and enjoy lessons. And the first 3 lessons are completely free. So anyone can go and do the first 3 lessons. You're going to get heaps of value out of those. Just go along, sign yourself up, and get into it. And if you decide you want to go on for the full course, you can sign yourself up for the full course after those free lessons.
I did enjoy having a poke around the course actually at the tail end of last year. There's certainly a lot of information in there that resonated with me, and I probably wish I had access to 10 years ago. Richard, look, thanks so much for giving us an hour of your time today. I know you're a busy man. We really appreciate it. I'm sure our listeners will get some real good value out of the stories that you have shared. And we'll look forward to reading the next edition of NZ Entrepreneur and catching up when I get back to New Zealand.
For sure. Yeah, been a pleasure chatting with you, Duncan, and keep up great work with Focus.
Thanks, mate. Take care.